The State Department Inspector General released a report or an audit on Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State and her emails, and it does not look good for her. So Huffington Post explains here, the report concluded that Clinton would not have been allowed to use the email server in her home had she asked the department officials in charge of information security. The report said that staff who later raised concerns were told to keep quiet. Several suspected hacking attempts in 2011 were never reported to Department Information Security officials in breach of department rules, it said. Damn. They continue. The Inspector General's office examined email record keeping under 5 secretaries of state, both Democratic and Republican. John Kerry, the current office holder, and predecessors, Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, and Condoleezza Rice, all agreed to speak to the Inspector General's investigators. Clinton was the only one who declined to be interviewed, and as did her aides. The report contradicted Clinton's repeated assertion that her server was allowed and that no permission was needed. Several other inquiries continue, including a U.S. Justice Department investigation into whether the arrangement broke laws. When 2 lower-level information technology officials tried to raise concerns about Clinton's email arrangement in late 2010, their supervisor in Clinton's office instructed them never to speak of the secretary's personal email system again. Their supervisor told them that department lawyers had approved of the system, but the Inspector General's office said it found no evidence that that was true. Wow. So this doesn't look good, and I got to be honest with you guys, my perception from that is it looks like she's hiding something. Now, at the beginning of this email scandal, I didn't think there was anything in this at all because there were so many bullshit right-wing hack so-called scandals that were non-scandals against the Clintons for all these years. So it's understandable to just assume this is part of another right-wing bullshit attack. But the more you look into it, the more you learn it's not true. Like, for example, at the very beginning, I thought that the email scandal was simply that she used her personal email when she was supposed to be using her government email. And people were like, oh, well, this is bad for security reasons. And so my response to that was, okay, well, did anybody successfully hack into it? And at the time, the answer was no. So I said, who cares? Get over it. She used the wrong email address, whatever. No, the more you look into it, the more you learn she actually built a server in her house. Why would you build a server in your house? Like, it's one thing to use a different email, the wrong email, but, like, you went out of your way to build a whole server in your house. I don't get why you do that. It almost looks like, by design, you're trying to skirt any kind of transparency whatsoever, and as Secretary of State, you have to have full transparency. Like, you're doing emails that are going to be they're going to be on record. Well, turns out she ended up deleting thousands of emails before turning over some stuff for an investigation. And she goes, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's personal. How the fuck do we know? You're Secretary of State. You gotta, like, the stuff you're saying is on record, just like how we have old tapes from the White House, phone calls and whatnot. Like, this is all part of the record. When you're doing official business, like, we put you in there. You're supposed to be a representative of the people. You're Secretary of State. This isn't a thing where it's just like, oh, I disagree and I don't want to show you my stuff. You're not a private citizen. That's fucking madness. So why would she do this? Guys, she's hiding something. It's that simple. She's hiding something. Now, whether or not those things broke laws, that's a separate question. I don't know the answer to that, and I do know that it would be super hard to prove if indeed it did break laws. But she is hiding something. And I think the most likely thing is it has to do with the Clinton Foundation, and it has to do with, literal quid pro quos. So you have the Clinton Foundation. We've seen some stories already, great reporting from the International Business Times, where they would take money. So Bill Clinton would go give a speech, would take money from various governments around the world, and then Hillary would turn around and, oh, look at that, we approved weapons deals for you after you just gave Bill a tremendous amount of money. So there's, that's questionable. That's corruption. That's bribery. Here, Mr. Clinton family member, take money, and I'm sure that this will not affect you or your family or your wife, who is Secretary of State, who can approve our arms deal now. So in those emails, it is certainly possible that there was some literal quid pro quos where they just set it up and set it, whether it's with Saudi officials or whoever, where they say, Oh, if I give Bill X amount of money for a speaking fee, will you approve the weapons deal? Oh, you will. Thank you. Boom, done. So if you have emails like that and you can prove that, that's a crime. That's a crime. Because everybody knows the way that legalized bribery and corruption works in America, you got to be coy about it. You got to be clever about it. You can't just say, "I am going to give you money and you are going to do me favors." It's got to be quiet. Okay, here, I'm giving you a campaign contribution of X amount. Oh, don't worry. If I want something, I'm not expecting anything in return. And then later on you call them, are you pushing for that policy thing I like with those extra loopholes and subsidies? You got to keep it on the low. You can't just say it. So, and then furthermore, we're talking about foreign governments, which is different, and that's actually another level of illegal. So, I don't know if it's in there, but I think it's possible, if not likely, that it's in there. Whether you could prove it in court is a separate issue, and whether there's going to be any consequences is a separate issue. But it appears like what people are saying now is, and the Washington Post, who backs Hillary like crazy, they had an article like, "Tisk, tisk, we are so angry at you, look at me waving my finger in your face. Let me tell you something right now. You broke these rules, and it is inexcusable." But the entire article, you get rules. They don't say laws. They say rules. That's on purpose. They say rules because they go, "Whoa, what are you going to do? She shouldn't have done this, but hey, you only broke rules. There's no laws being broken here. Gotta let her go. We're totally against it. Look what she did. It's terrible, but she broke rules, not laws." So they're trying to make it, we gotta let her go even though she did something wrong. She's still under FBI investigation, guys. Keep that in mind. And if there's any argument Bernie Sanders is going to make at the convention to try to flip superdelegates, I think they're all in Hillary's camp anyway, big time, because they're corrupt. They're Democratic establishment insiders. But the argument he'll make is twofold. I beat Trump by gigantic numbers, 15 points in the most recent poll. She loses to Trump by 2 points. That's a giant difference. I'm the better candidate. And oh yeah, she's under FBI investigation. You really want to risk a Trump presidency off of her narcissism and selfishness? She wants so bad to be president that we don't take into account that she's under FBI investigation? Imagine Bernie Sanders was under FBI investigation. What would Hillary supporters say? "Drop out immediately! You're under FBI investigation! You could be a criminal! Get out of here!" When she does it, nobody even talks about it in the mainstream media. So here we are, man. She did something wrong and she's hiding something. We don't know what it is, and we don't know if it can be proven in court, and we don't know if there will be consequences, but this adds to the notion that she's untrustworthy. You want to know why? Because she's untrustworthy.